I am Zunaira Azhar and you're watching Epicenter, where we dissect, analyze and help understand major domestic and global stories. At the domestic front, it seems that politics in Pakistan has stagnated, with new developments surfacing daily, but underlying issues persisting from the politics of the 80s and 90s. Governance takes a backseat to personal vendettas, leaving the people as the ultimate victims. This cycle of inertia has further been intensified with the constant introduction of the laws that further restrict already limited free speech in the country. In today's Epicenter, let's examine whether our panel concurs to this observation or not. To discuss this, we have been joined by two very esteemed guests, and I have with me Muhammad Ali Durrani, no introduction needed, senior politician, and Senator Humayun Mohammad, who hails from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. And Mr. Durrani, I am coming straight to you. It is an observation that you just heard from me. Do you concur to that? And if you do, where are we headed in terms of political stability?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Zunaira, what you said is a reality, and it can be seen, it can be observed, and it can be seen in the reflection of history as well. What you have said is correct. But today, there's one difference from the past. In past, we were having two confronting parties opponent to one another. Two families were in front of one another. This time, there is a difference. Two major political parties, which are really not political parties, they are dynasties or they are the hereditary parties. They were ruling this country right from the 1972 till the date. And people were also following their tendency. And people saw that one party is going to be in power, they started voting to that party. When they saw the other party is coming, they started, and the electables in the country, they also started shifting to the same party, which was expected to be in power in the coming government. This time, what we have seen, and I personally observed it, and I'm saying it again and again, that this time, people are on the other side. People, even those two major political parties which are together today, though they were not contesting election on the same symbol, but they were actually contesting symbols on they were contesting elections on the same motive or the same desire to be in power. Now, this time, people resisted their electability, the people resisted their distortion of the government authorities, distortion of the police, distortion of the courts, and people stood with another group of people which they thought that they are not from them who were ruling this country from the last 52 years. So this is a great change, and today the confrontation is not between those two family parties. But this time, the confrontation is between those two parties, rather all the alliance of PDM, which is more or less having every party with them, barring few, and with the independents, you call it PTI, you call it New People, you call it representatives, which are there because of public inertia. Now they on the both sides. Many of them are though electable. Many of them have been in the process in past. So what I see today is very interesting and very new, that people are rejecting old political parties and old political families which were there because of their political inertia, their past, and they were taking pride of their families, and hereditary politics is under real check today. And I see something very different for the future.
Okay, that's very reassuring. Mr. Mohammed, coming to you, your party has actually broken that inertia that Mr. Durrani is talking about. And your party has excelled in shaping narratives, and there has been a robust support base that you have now. However, in light of the current challenges that your leadership, your founder is confronting, how do you justify or how do you explain resorting to divisive rhetoric? And I'm specifically referring to the one that was tweeted about the 1971 debacle in the last few days, because you don't need it. You don't need any divisive politics at this point of time. You already have a very strong support base.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You see, what has been happening in Pakistan is right from the beginning, from Justice Munir onwards, there was this judgment which will probably, people will try to bypass the main constitution because it was what they call as Nazriya Zarurat. So whatever they needed, they would just bypass it. And that has been happening. And if you really see over the period of last 4 decades, just like Honorable Senator Durrani Sahab has mentioned, it was 2 families who captured the whole 4 decades. And in those 4 decades, if you see the graph, Pakistan went from one of the top countries in Asia to one of the bottom countries in Asia. So if I ask myself what happened was the moral value of the country deteriorated, the structure of the governance deteriorated, the decision making was all about the elite capture, even the institutions started to behave in the same way. So what is happening as we speak? The elite capture, which includes the civil, military, judiciary bureaucracy, which includes the businessman and the politician, which comprises of about 1% of the elite who matters, who take the decision into their hands. They are controlling the 9% of the GDP, and they are being subsidized by 4.5 trillion rupees a year, as opposed to giving even, let's say, 1 trillion subsidy to the poorest. We are hardly been able to give them even 100 billion as a subsidy. And we are giving all these elite people, you know, the ex-judge will get so much, the ex-general will get so much, the ex-secretary will get so much, the ex-president will get so much, the ex-prime minister, chief minister, and all those things along queue, they will get so much of benefits. For what? For being ex-governor or ex-president or ex... No, you know, if we start going towards that thing, that is where these 2 families are siphoning the money out of this thing. And all these leakage, whether it was of WikiLeaks, whether it was Panama leaks, or this latest, you will see that it's the same families who are always coming up, or their names are coming up as the beneficiary of or getting some new properties, which either they, I don't know whether they really declared or not, and if they declared, have they really shown which way the money that was transferred? Now it is very easy that this money was, you know, I inherited this money from my father, but hold on, how did your father get this much money? Nobody's going to ask that question. So what is happening is all the decisions are being made for these elite people. And if you see how they talk to us, they say, we, the children of the rulers, we, the rulers of this country. They don't talk about...
That's a mindset. Unfortunate, but that's a mindset. But that brings me to the question of NAB. We are all aware of the harassing and hounding of politicians by the NAB since it is created in President Musharraf's era. But whosoever tries to get rid of it, the other political party wouldn't let it happen. And this NAB amendment case right now in the Supreme Court is the epic example that politicians let the NAB be used against each other. And then they blame that they have been victimized by NAB at the behest of establishment. So why don't you all get together under one roof when it comes to NAB?
You see, if you ask me about this SNAP, there are two parts of it. One are the different, sections of the NAB amendments where they have tried to tweak things so that, one can get away with the, money being transferred to what they call as Benami thing. They are trying to get rid of that thing so that all those people who have one way or another way done the money laundering, they can get away with that. Now, these are kind of things. And then, the burden of proof is being shifted from one place to another place and so on. So in other words, these NAB amendments, some of them are person specific. And if you see, you will know which articles of the new NAB law is helping one family or the other family or one individual or the other individual, which should not be there. There has to be a balance between how to check the corruption and at the same time not to harass the politicians or bureaucracy. So yes, there has to be a balance. There has to be
a consensus among political parties for that. I would say that first you need to sit on one table and discuss a few things and develop a consensus and then go to the Supreme Court rather than challenging each other. It's time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Epicenter once again, and we have with us Senator Humayun Mohammad and Mr. Muhammad Ali Durrani, both ace politicians, and we are discussing what is happening in Pakistan at the moment and which way are we headed. Mr. Humayun Mohammad, it is understandable that your party is going through tough times, rough times, I would say. But at the same time, the current posturing by the Chief Minister of KP, Ali Amin Gandapur, is amazing because he is carrying on with the party's narrative as well, and on governance issue, he is on one page with the government as well. Don't you think this is a very sane posturing, and whatever is coming out of Adiala jail has to be sane as well? Why resort to divisive tweets, if I may say that?
You see, first of all, just a quick comment with the NAB laws. I'll just give you 3 examples why there is a little bit problem with the NAB laws. Section 5E, Section 5V, it says that the assets in the name of the children would be exempted. So in other words, it gives me an opportunity to do the corruption and put the money in my children's account, and I would not be, sort of, right? Similarly, 5V is about the civilians or the frontman who are working with me, and I can do anything and they would not be exempted. Number 3, Section 21(9), it says that evidence from the abroad will not be considered, and if you see, all the properties in all these leaks were abroad. So all these things, actually give them an opportunity to cash onto it. So one has to be very balanced about this thing. Now, coming to your point. When you said it's a little tough time, so I'll say when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Okay. True. Now, second thing, with respect to the tweet that you mentioned earlier as well, if you are referring to the tweet with respect of Hamoodur Rahman Commission, right?
Absolutely.
So I would see that tweet or that Hamoodur Rahman Commission in 2 ways. Number 1, it addresses as a compliment to the army as an institution and says the army fought bravely, and it has all the compliments for the army as an institution. But at the same time, it targets one person's lust for power, and in order to fulfill his lust, he puts the whole country at stake. And instead of, if I try to give an analogy of the current situation, he does not give the power to the leader who won as per Form 45, and he brought in a leader who won as per Form 47 and did not win. So in other words, a political party with 80 seats was given the opportunity to make the government as opposed to the political party which had 160 plus seats. So that is what now tell me one thing. If you are heading a wrong way, and I know that few years back somebody went on this road and he had a fatal accident, and if I try to stop you from going to that road, am I your friend or am I your enemy? Of course,
the problem is, let me interject here. The problem is the way you interpret it, it looks different to me. But the way things transpire on the social media, then you can't control it. What has happened is that it has been taken in the wrong way with the common masses. How do you describe that?
Okay, you see, the thing is that I am telling you exactly what it means. This is what, in my opinion, we are trying to tell people that, look, the way which we are heading, if we go into the past and learn from the mistake that was done at that time, let's not make the same mistake and head for another major calamity. So, in other words, I'm trying to tell you, please watch out, you are on the wrong path. So I'm actually, if anything, I am your friend. I am not your enemy. And I've time and again, I've said that, look, this army is mine. I own this army, and the very words absolutely not was actually said in order to protect my own army. Why should I sacrifice my 80,000 army men for somebody else's war? We should not. That is the difference between a mind which is free of slavery and a mind which says beggars cannot be the choosers. So if you see from these two perspectives, of course, everything changes. It is how you see things. And let me tell you one more thing. The eyes doesn't see what the mind doesn't know. So those people who are trying to take it to, in other words, their mind has got limited knowledge.
Yeah, so that's the whole point. And I think there should be another tweet coming from the same account that describes the situation as you are describing it to me, so that things.
I am a spokesperson. I'm trying to tell you exactly what does that tweet means.
Fair enough.
But the people are trying to, you see, the people, the enemy, the people who wants to take the benefit out of this situation will try to twist it the way they want.
That's my exact point. With so many fissures in the society and the political landscape, I don't think anybody can afford any misunderstanding any further. Thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad Ali Durrani and Senator Humayun Mohammad. It's time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Epicenter once again, and let's get to our global story this week. The brutality displayed in the Rafah airstrike by Israel following the ICC's decision to suspend the very operation is unprecedented in the modern history. Targeting a refugee camp in Rafah is deeply disturbing, sadly not the first time since this conflict has started. Washington and Tel Aviv both have shown no remorse for these atrocities against civilians, the children left orphaned, the mass graves created, and the use of forced starvation as a weapon in Gaza. What would it take or require for the world to put an end to this monstrous behavior? That is the bigger question here. And before we carry on with our discussion on the Gaza, let's talk to Geti Ara Anis, who is Bureau Chief of AK News in Washington. Welcome to the show, Geti. So there are two things happening globally. One, Gaza war, and two, of course, what's very important is the upcoming US election. We have been watching and following through you whatever is happening on the US campuses and how the public opinion is shaping when it comes to the Palestinian population under attack by Israel. How do you explain to us what has been happening lately?
Well, if we have talked about this issue like a couple of weeks ago, a lot was happening on the ground actually, because we all know that there were a string of protests that were taking place all across the campuses in America. Now the things have, this is kind of a lull period for now because for a number of reasons. Once there was a huge crackdown and the main encampment at the Columbia University was dismantled, and more than dozens of students were, taken out of the premise by force. They are still facing repercussions. So there's a lot going on still. But the kind of commotion we were seeing the coordinated kind of form of protest that was taking place each day, every day, at one or the other campus, it's not the way it was. One, because there is a huge push from the government. Even the force was used, police was inside the campuses. The second thing is the semester has ended, so the majority of the students who have been taking part in this encampment and protest have left temporarily for their respective towns. But this actually, let me tell you, this has not really ended this protest. It is taking new shapes and new forms. We are seeing one or the other act of rebellion by one or the other students every other day at the university ceremonies, and there's still a lot going on, but this is taking a different form now. I won't say this is completely confined to social media platforms, but I would say that students have taken more unorthodox way of registering their protest. Yes.
All right. So we have seen this very new reality to the outer world, where we thought that the Democrats and Republicans are deeply divided over some issues. But one thing that is common and that is more evident nowadays is that on the matter of Israel, they are all on the same page. We have seen Nikki Haley signing the missiles, saying finish them, and those missiles are meant for the Gaza population. Do you see the discussions going on around you regarding the political class of US being involved and complicit in this genocide?
Well, we have to see there has been a continuous change in the opinion when it comes to common Americans about this whole issue. So this was an issue this is something that is happening, thousands of miles away from America and its own borders. So it took a while for American people to actually get a grip of this whole issue. And now, if you go through the recent polls, the majority of common Americans are not in favor of the kind of aggression they are seeing in the Middle East. They are looking for ceasefire. They are even calling their own politicians out on different things. You just mentioned Nikki Haley. Has been a huge outcry on social media. In person, people are talking about it and not really endorsing this thing. So this is something that American people, the public, has a different opinion on than both the parties that we have just talked about. But let me just bring in one important point, that there is a difference that we are seeing. The voters who are aligned with Republicans are very much, also aligned with the ideology of their leader. I'm talking about the former president Donald Trump. Just yesterday, he said that if he was in the White House, there would have been no protests. He would deport the students who are taking part in these protests.
He categorically said that.
Okay with that. But on the other hand, if we come to Democrats, there is a rift within the party where people are split on all this issue. There's a huge number of people who want America to be more assertive about bringing peace to the region and not directly in any way be called or become a complicit in all this situation. But there are others who want Biden to be more hawkish when it comes to Israel and be more, show more Israeli side to its voter. So basically, the Biden administration is facing a number of issues and facing a mountain pressure on this issue from different quarters.
All right. My last question, and I would request a very precise answer to this. Do you think this Palestinian issue is going to impact in a big way the upcoming elections in US?
foreign issues have not been really a deciding or pivotal point in American elections usually, but it's not completely unheard of either. During the Iraq War, the things did change, but we have to see that in that war, America was directly involved. So, but this time, this definitely is going to be an issue, apart from the immigration and the abortion laws that it's on top of the list for both the parties. Yes.
Thank you so much, Getiara, for reporting us directly from Washington. It's time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Epicenter once again. In the latest development in this regard, we have been joined by Abdurrahman Matar, who is an expert on Middle Eastern affairs, and we have also been joined by Syed Muhammad Ali, who is an expert on international affairs. Mr. Abdurrahman Matar, I'm coming straight to you as someone who has an expertise over Middle Eastern affairs. How do you look at this spillover of Gaza all over Middle East, and above all, in the wake of ICC's decision and the continued support by largely most of the countries in the world for Palestinian population, what would it take for Israel and US to stop this ongoing genocide in Rafah and Gaza?
Zunaira, thank you so much for having me. I think United States, Israel, they will not stop this war in Gaza unless and until they eliminate the people in Gaza. And of course, as they said, the fighters of Hamas and the whole force of Hamas. Until that target being achieved by them, as they are always saying, almost daily they are saying, I don't think they will stop this war, despite of the fact that as the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, United Nations, so many resolutions, so many calls by Western capitals, Arab capitals, everybody is calling the international community to stop this war. But I think Israel is not stop this war. United States also is not willing to stop this war, and they will keep on fighting. They will keep on bombardment of Gaza, killing the innocent people, starving, forcing them into starvation, killing them by besieging them, banning treatment, banning aid. They will keep on doing all of these tactics they are doing since the last 7 months. They will never stop this war unless and until they achieve what they are, looking for. Okay, there is another scenario. If the Arab countries, the Arab governments, Arab armies step in support of Gaza, maybe that will ultimately end the war. But I don't think Israelis are willing to stop this war because they are achieving nothing so far. Despite of all of this, they are achieving nothing.
Absolutely, and this is the sad part, and I would come to this later as well. Syed Muhammad Ali, I'm coming straight to you. The world has witnessed what I would say are the most horrifying images, the attack on the Rafah, the tent genocide people are calling it. And here is a White House statement, about a White House spokesperson who is saying that no red lines have been crossed yet in Rafah. Rather, they say that they haven't seen them smash into Rafah, so no red lines have been crossed. What would it take for the US war machinery to realize that their taxpayers' money is being used for a genocide?
Thank you for having me. I think, frankly, there are three aspects of this current conflict which are worth considering. First off, I think the Gaza conflict has exposed the shallowness and the duplicity of the international world order, which is pivoted on three pillars. The first pillar is the UN system, which was aimed at peacefully resolving all international disputes, which is also a failure. The second pillar is the international legal system anchored in UN Charter and also international laws, Geneva Convention, Vienna Convention, so on and so forth. These laws, despite the recent proceedings and verdict of International Court of Justice are difficult to enforce, minus a political will and military capability of the international community. The third pillar is the international monetary system, pivoted and anchored into IMF and World Bank, which obviously are also not fairly and equitably sharing the prosperity and the benefits of monetary incentives between the developed world and the developing world. So what the Gaza conflict symbolizes is basically it has exposed, perhaps like no other conflict before this, the shallowness, the hollowness of the Western-led world order. And it has seriously dented to its credibility. On the moral and psychological level, I think the Palestinians have won this war.
Well, Mr. Mathur, sadly, it's very distressing to even talk about it, but we have to discuss it being journalists. But ever since the attack on the October 7 by Hamas, there is no proportionate, there is no thing as proportionate response, because there is Palestinian population that is continuously being attacked by Israel and US, I would say. And at the same time, the world community keep on calling it a conflict or a war when it is not a conflict or a war, because the civilians are exposed to the kind of war machinery that we cannot even imagine. Do you think Hamas has actually done a service to the Palestinian people by attacking the Israel?
The issue is that the Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian issue started 75 years ago. Yeah. During this 75 years ago, there was, you know, a lot of atrocities by the Israelis against the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of diplomatic efforts to reach to some sort of a peace agreement with the Israelis to establish the state of Palestine, to stop this aggression. Everybody knows that Egypt has signed a peace agreement with Israel in 1979, Jordan 1994, even the Palestinian Authority, which was established, and they have also signed a peace agreement with the Israelis. But the reality is that there was no solution. Israelis never ever respected those peace agreements. There was a reaction by Hamas on the 7th of October to, to take revenge from those Israelis who are respecting no law, who are accepting no agreement, who are implementing no resolution. So they started believing that, okay, what has been taken from us as a Palestinian by force should be returned to us by force. That's why they have done this attack. And there was a lot of support, by the way, from the people of Gaza, from the Palestinians in general, and even from among the Arabs and the Muslims. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the level of the people in the Arab world and in the Muslim world. Unfortunately, those Arab governments and those Muslim governments who knows the reality, who knows that the Palestinians were forced to go for such type of a conflict or an attack or whatever you'd like to call it, because nobody was supporting them practically. You know, right. Gaza is 365 square kilometers. It is besieged since the last 18 years. And it is besieged even by Arab countries, by Arab neighbors, by Egypt, by Jordan, by the closest Arab neighbors to
allies,
them.
Yeah.
So what is left? There was no other option.
True, agreed. And I'll take the same question to Mr. Muhammad Ali. Could this conflict be averted preemptively in any way, given the fact that there were Abraham Accords going on already, there was a two-state solution on the table already, but nobody was making a move on that other than the normalization of relationship with Israel. So the conflict, the Palestinian conflict, was never on the table. Now this situation has emerged where practically Israel is in Rafah, Israel is in Gaza. Do you think there is still any hope for any two-state solution?
I think there are three dimensions to the conflict. This conflict is right now afoot simultaneously on three fronts. One is the humanitarian front, the moral front. The second is the political or diplomatic front, and the third is the military front.
The first one seemed to be broken completely.
Sorry?
The first one seemed to be broken completely, the moral one.
Yeah, I think, in my view, the Palestinians have already won the moral war. They have already won the diplomatic war.
But Mr. Ali, maybe in the books, but practically they're out of Rafah, they're out of Gaza, they are dead. They are nowhere to be found, to be honest.
That is the military front. That's what I'm saying. Israel cannot defeat Palestinians morally or politically. They can be, but they are being slaughtered physically. So the real conflict that you are referring to is the military conflict. And the military conflict will only stop once any major power can directly intervene and influence Israeli leadership and impose a cost on Israel which is unaffordable for Israel to carry on the conflict.
All right, I'll go to Mr. Mathur. A short comment from you. We are running out of time. Do you see any way that this conflict could be stopped where it is right now in the times to come?
I think now it is up to us as an Arab and as a Muslims to wake up, stand up, realize the importance of the Palestinian issue, the importance of the Jerusalem, Baitul Maqdis for us as a Muslims and Arab, and start fighting along with the Palestinians to stop the Israelis, to stop their aggression, and even to cut the relations with the United States and even those European countries which is supporting Israel, not only the United States. You have Britain, France, Germany, Italy as well. They are supporting Israel just like the United States.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdurrahman Mathur and Syed Muhammad Ali for joining us. And this wraps up Epicenter for this week.